Jake Morrison stood in the briefing room and tried not to show his nervousness. This was his first big assignment with Earth's diplomatic corps, and he wanted to make a good impression. The woman at the front of the room, Commander Kate Phillips, pulled up a holographic image of a massive space station. "This is Crossroads Haven," she said. "It's a neutral meeting place, where different alien species come to talk and make deals. The Velari Empire requested human security guards for their diplomatic summit." "You've been selected, Morrison," Jake nodded. He had trained for 2 years for this kind of work. He knew how to handle weapons, how to spot threats, and how to stay calm under pressure. But he had never actually met an alien before. None of the humans at the base had. "The Velari are insectoid," Commander Phillips continued. "They look like giant mantises, about 7 feet tall, with natural armor. They value strength and loyalty above everything else. Don't take it personally if they seem cold or dismissive. They think humans are weak." "Understood," Jake said. "Your specific assignment is to guard Princess Lyra. She's the daughter of Queen Ashara, their ruler. She's 7 years old." Jake felt a small disappointment. He had hoped for something more exciting than babysitting duty. But he kept his face neutral. "Yes, ma'am. Don't underestimate this job, Morrison. Where the child goes, the Queen's attention follows. Do this well, and it could open doors for humanity." 3 days later, Jake arrived at Crossroads Haven. The station was enormous. A city floating in space. Aliens of all kinds walked through the corridors. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Jake couldn't figure out which end was the front. The Velari delegation arrived in the main hangar with great ceremony. Jake got his first look at them and had to control his reaction. They were intimidating. Their bodies were covered in dark green armor plates. Their eyes were large and multifaceted, gleaming like black jewels. They moved with a precise, almost mechanical grace. Queen Ashara was the largest of them all, wearing elaborate markings on her armor that seemed to glow with a soft blue light. She barely glanced at the human guards as she passed. Behind her, moving much more slowly, was Princess Lyra. The young Velari was smaller than the adults, obviously, but still nearly 5 feet tall. Her armor was lighter in color, a pale green that reminded Jake of new leaves in spring. She kept her head down and stayed close to one of the adult attendants. Jake was introduced to the royal party by Claire Henderson, a human diplomat who had been working with the Velari for months. Claire spoke their clicking, chittering language fluently. "This is Jake Morrison," Claire said in Velari. "He will be guarding Princess Lyra." One of the Velari guards, a massive male with scarred armor, made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. "A human? To guard the princess? He is barely worth noticing." Jake felt his face heat up but said nothing. He simply bowed respectfully, the way he had been taught. The first few days were awkward. Jake followed Princess Lyra everywhere, always staying a few steps behind. She never spoke to him. The Velari attendants treated him like furniture, talking over him and around him as if he wasn't there. But Jake watched and learned. He noticed that Lyra seemed lonely. While the adult Velari were always busy with meetings and discussions, the young princess spent most of her time in her quarters, with only her attendants. She had no one to play with. On the 4th day, Jake saw her standing at a viewing window, looking out at the stars. She was alone for once, her attendants having stepped into the next room. Jake approached carefully. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" he said quietly. "All those stars." Lyra's head swiveled toward him. Her large eyes studied him for a long moment. "You speak to me?" Her voice was high and musical, translated into perfect English by the device on Jake's collar. "I'm sorry if that was wrong," Jake said. "I just thought you might want someone to talk to. The others say humans are weak, that you break easily." "That's true," Jake admitted. "We're not as strong as Velari, but we're tougher than we look." Lyra tilted her head in a gesture that seemed curious. "What is Earth like?" Jake smiled. "It's beautiful. We have oceans that cover most of the planet, and forests with trees so tall you can't see the tops, and animals of all kinds." "Animals?" Jake pulled out his personal tablet and showed her pictures. He had photos of his brother Ben's dog, a golden retriever named Buddy. Photos of birds and elephants and dolphins. Lyra moved closer, fascinated. These creatures live on your world? They do. This one is called a dog. They're loyal and friendly. Humans keep them as companions. For the next hour, Jake showed Lyra pictures and told her stories about Earth. She asked question after question, her shyness gradually fading. When her attendants returned and saw them talking, they seemed surprised but said nothing. After that, something changed. Lyra began to seek Jake out. She would ask him to walk with her through the station's gardens. She wanted to know everything about Earth and humans. Jake taught her simple games, like rock, paper, scissors, though they had to adapt it for her three-fingered hands. The other Velari guards watched this with confusion. Some seemed disapproving, but Claire told Jake that Queen Ashara had noticed her daughter laughing for the first time since they arrived at the station. The Queen had said nothing, but she watched Jake carefully whenever he was near. Jake found himself genuinely caring about the young princess. She was smart and curious, with a gentle nature that seemed unusual among the fierce Velari. He made terrible jokes that she didn't quite understand but laughed at anyway. He showed her magic tricks with coins and cards. He treated her with the same respect he would give to any person, regardless of species. One evening, as Jake escorted Lyra back to the royal quarters after a walk, she stopped and looked up at him. "Jake Morrison," she said formally, "you are different from what I expected. Different from what the others said." Drummed. Asked Mar. "Different how?" Jake asked. "Kind," she said simply. "You are kind." Jake felt a warmth in his chest. "Thank you, Princess. You're kind too. Will you stay after the summit ends?" "I have to go back to Earth," Jake said gently. "But I'll be here until then." Lyra nodded slowly. "Then I will enjoy your company while you remain." As Jake stood guard that night outside the royal quarters, he thought about how strange his life had become. 3 weeks ago, he had never left Earth. Now he was friends with an alien princess, standing guard on a space station, surrounded by beings from across the galaxy. He smiled to himself. Whatever happened next, at least it wouldn't be boring. He had no idea how right he was. The explosion came without warning. Jake was in the royal quarters with Princess Lyra, helping her practice writing English letters. She found the human alphabet fascinating, so different from the complex symbols the Velari used. It was early evening by station time, and most of the delegation was at dinner with ambassadors from other species. The first blast shook the entire section. The lights flickered and went red. Emergency sirens began to wail. Jake's training took over instantly. He grabbed Lyra and pulled her away from the window just as the glass shattered inward. "Stay low," he shouted. "What's happening?" Lyra's voice was high with fear. "I don't know, but we need to get to safety." Jake had memorized the layout of the quarters on his first day. There was a safe room, reinforced and hidden behind a wall panel in the princess's bedroom. He had checked it personally, wanting to know where to take her in an emergency. They ran through the corridors of the suite. Jake could hear shouting in the distance, and more explosions. His communicator was screaming with emergency alerts, but he ignored it. His job was simple: protect Lyra. He slapped his hand on the wall panel. It slid open, revealing a small room with thick metal walls. "Get inside," he told Lyra. She obeyed without question, her large eyes wide with terror. Jake followed her in and sealed the door. The safe room had its own power supply and air system. They could survive in here for days if needed. Jake checked his weapon, a compact plasma pistol. Full charge. He had 2 spare power cells on his belt. Not much, but it would have to do. "Jake Morrison." "I'm frightened," Lyra whispered. She had curled herself into a ball in the corner of the safe room. Jake sat down next to her, keeping his weapon ready. "I know, Princess, but you're safe here, I promise." Outside, they could hear the sounds of fighting. Weapons, fire, screams, and the heavy footsteps of many beings running through the corridors. Jake's communicator crackled with broken messages. He caught fragments. Breach. In multiple sectors. End. Attackers in Royal Wing. Guards down. His blood ran cold. The attack was focused here, on the royal quarters. Then he heard a voice through the door, speaking in Vaylari. His translator worked even through the safe room's walls. Find the child. The queen's spawn must not survive. Jake's grip tightened on his weapon. These weren't random attackers. They were here specifically to kill Lyra. The next 18 hours became a blur of fear and action. The attackers found the safe room within an hour. Jake heard them working on the door, trying to cut through with plasma torches. The door would hold for a while, but not forever. He looked around the safe room with new eyes, searching for anything he could use. There was an emergency kit with medical supplies, some water, and food rations. And there was a ventilation grate. Jake examined the grate. It was small, but not too small. He could fit through it, and Lyra definitely could. Princess, we need to move, he said quietly. But you said we're safe here. We are, for now, but they're going to get through that door eventually. We need to find a better hiding spot. Jake pried open the ventilation grate and looked inside. The shaft was dark and narrow, but it led somewhere. Anywhere was better than being trapped. He helped Lyra climb into the shaft first, then followed behind her. They crawled through the darkness, the metal cold against their hands. Behind them, Jake heard the safe room door finally give way. Shouts of anger filled the air as the attackers found the room empty. The ventilation shaft connected to the station's maintenance system. Jake led Lyra through a maze of tunnels and service corridors that most people never saw. He had studied these passages during the first week, a habit from his training. Always know the exits, always have a backup plan. They emerged in a storage area 3 sections away from the royal quarters. Jake found a hiding spot behind large containers of supplies. He made Lyra as comfortable as possible, then began to think about their next move. His communicator was still getting broken signals. From what he could piece together, the attack was massive and coordinated. The group called themselves the Torn Claw Brotherhood. They were Vaylari extremists who opposed the Queen's peaceful policies. Station security was fighting back, but they had been caught off guard. Help would come eventually, but Jake didn't know when. He heard footsteps approaching their hiding spot. Heavy footsteps. Vaylari footsteps. Jake put a finger to his lips, signaling Lyra to stay silent. He raised his weapon and waited. 2 Vaylari warriors entered the storage area, both carrying heavy weapons. They wore black armor marked with red symbols. Torn Claw Brotherhood. The child must be here somewhere, one of them said. Check every container. Jake made a split-second decision. If he let them search, they would find Lyra. He had to act first. He stepped out from behind the containers and fired. The first shot caught the nearest warrior in the shoulder joint, where his armor was weakest. The Vaylari roared in pain and stumbled. The second warrior was faster. He raised his weapon, but Jake was already moving. He dove and rolled, firing twice more. One shot missed. The other hit the warrior's weapon, destroying it in a shower of sparks. The first warrior recovered and charged at Jake. Even wounded, he was terrifyingly fast and strong. Jake couldn't fight him hand to hand. He would lose. So Jake didn't fight fair. He grabbed a container and shoved it hard. The heavy box slid across the floor and slammed into the warrior's legs. The Vaylari tripped and fell. Jake fired again, this time hitting him in the head. The warrior stopped moving. The second warrior pulled out a blade and rushed at Jake. There was no time to aim. Jake threw himself to the side, but not fast enough. The blade cut across his arm, slicing through his uniform and into flesh. Pain exploded through him. Jake landed hard and rolled. He came up firing. The shots were wild, desperate, but one of them hit. The warrior fell. Jake pressed his hand against his arm, feeling blood seep through his fingers. It hurt terribly, but he was still alive. Lyra was still safe. Jake Morrison. Lyra emerged from their hiding spot, her voice panicked. You're injured. I'm okay. Jake lied. He tore a strip from his uniform and wrapped it around his arm to slow the bleeding. We need to keep moving. For the next several hours, They played a deadly game of hide-and-seek through the station. Jake heard the attackers coordinating their search. They knew the princess was somewhere in this sector. They were checking everywhere. Jake's arm throbbed with pain, but he ignored it. He found more hiding spots. Using his knowledge of the maintenance areas to stay one step ahead, he rigged simple traps using equipment he found, warning systems that would give him a few seconds of notice if someone approached. Twice more, he had to fight. Each time, he was outnumbered and outmatched. But Jake had something the warriors didn't expect. He was creative. He used the environment, turned their strength against them, fought dirty and smart. By the time help finally arrived, Jake had been wounded 3 more times. A cut across his ribs, burns on his leg from a near miss with a plasma weapon, a deep bruise on his shoulder from being thrown into a wall. He was barely standing when he heard the sound of station security forces entering the sector. He heard Claire's voice calling out in Veilari, announcing that help had arrived. Jake almost collapsed with relief. He had done it. Lyra was safe. The young princess wrapped her arms around him carefully, trying not to hurt him further. "You protected me," she whispered. "You fought them all." "That's my job," Jake said, though his voice was weak. "That's what guardians do." The last thing he saw before exhaustion claimed him was Lyra's face, and the tears running down her armored cheeks. Jake woke up slowly, his mind foggy and confused. Everything hurt. He tried to move, and immediately regretted it as pain shot through his body. "Easy," a voice said. "Don't try to sit up yet." Jake opened his eyes. He was in a medical bay, but not a human one. The equipment around him was strange and unfamiliar. A Veilari doctor stood nearby, adjusting something on a monitor. "Where am I?" Jake asked. His throat felt dry. "You are in the Royal Medical Facility on the Veilari flagship," the doctor said. "You have been unconscious for 3 days. 3 days." Jake's memory came rushing back. The attack. The fighting. Lyra. "The princess," Jake said urgently, trying to sit up again. "Is she safe?" A hand gently pushed him back down. But this hand was different. Larger. When Jake turned his head, he saw Queen Ashara herself sitting beside his bed. "My daughter is safe," the queen said. Her voice was deep and resonant. "Because of you." Jake relaxed back onto the bed. "Good, that's good. You are a curious creature, Jake Morrison," Queen Ashara said. She was studying him the way someone might study an interesting insect. "So small and fragile. Yet you defeated 7 trained warriors of the Torn Claw Brotherhood. You kept my daughter alive through 18 hours of danger." "I was just doing my job," Jake said. "No," the queen's voice was firm. "What you did went far beyond duty. You were wounded multiple times. You could have hidden yourself, left my daughter, and saved your own life. But you did not. You fought for her as if she were your own child." Jake didn't know what to say to that. It was true that he could have run. The thought had never even crossed his mind. Over the next few days, Jake learned what had happened during the attack. 37 beings had been killed, including 5 Veilari guards and 2 human security officers. The Torn Claw Brotherhood had been trying to assassinate Queen Ashara and take control of the Empire. The attack had failed, but it had been close. Jake's injuries were serious but healable. The Veilari doctors were skilled, and they had technology that could speed up recovery. His wounds were already closing, though he still felt weak. What surprised him was the constant stream of visitors. Queen Ashara came every day, sometimes twice. She brought gifts, exotic foods from Veilari worlds, beautiful crystals, even a small ceremonial blade that she said was a symbol of honor. But the most frequent visitor was Lyra herself. The young princess would sit by his bed for hours, telling him about her day, showing him drawings she had made, bringing him her favorite foods to try. She refused to leave his side, unless the doctors insisted. "The others are different now," Lyra told him one afternoon. "They look at you differently. They look at all humans differently." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "Before, they thought humans were weak. Amusing, perhaps, but not worthy of respect. Now they have seen what you can do. They call you the small warrior with the giant heart. Jake felt embarrassed. I just did what anyone would do. No, Lyra said seriously. Not anyone. Many would have run. Many would have saved themselves. You stayed. You fought. You protected me. One day, Claire came to visit. She looked tired but happy to see Jake awake and recovering. You've caused quite a stir, she said, sitting in the chair beside his bed. You're famous among the Velari now. They're fascinated by you. I don't want to be famous, Jake said. I just want to go home. Claire's expression changed. She looked uncomfortable. About that. I need to explain something to you about Velari culture. She told him about Koresh Tal, the sacred bond. When a guardian sheds blood to protect a child of the royal family, they become bound to that family forever. It was an ancient tradition, deeply important to the Velari people. So what does that mean exactly? Jake asked, though he had a bad feeling he already knew. It means Queen Ashara considers you part of her family now. You're not just a guard anymore. You're Lyra's protector. Her guardian. Her Koresh Tal. In Velari culture, that bond is unbreakable. But I have a life on Earth, Jake said. I have a brother. A family. Claire looked even more uncomfortable. I know. And I've been trying to explain that to the Queen. But she doesn't understand why you would want to leave. To the Velari. Walking away from Koresh Tal would be like abandoning your own child. Jake felt a cold dread in his stomach. What are you saying? I'm saying that when you requested a transfer back to Earth last week, while you were still unconscious, the Queen denied it. She can't do that, Jake said. I'm a human citizen. I have rights. Technically, you're under Velari protection during the ongoing investigation of the attack. And the Queen has made it very clear that she wants you to stay. She's offering you a position as Lyra's permanent guardian. Wealth, status, honor, everything you could want. Except my freedom, Jake said quietly. Claire didn't argue with that. When Queen Ashara visited that evening, Jake tried to explain. He spoke carefully, respectfully, but firmly. Your Majesty, I am honored by your offer, but I cannot accept. I have a life on Earth, a brother who depends on me, friends, a home. Queen Ashara listened patiently. You speak of Earth as if it is your only home, but you are Koreshtal now. Your home is with my daughter, with us. I care about Lyra, Jake said honestly. I really do. But I can't just give up my entire life. Why not? The Queen seemed genuinely confused. We offer you everything. Status, wealth, purpose. What more could you want? Freedom to choose, Jake said. That's what humans value most. The right to make our own decisions about our lives. Queen Ashara was quiet for a long moment. Among my people, such bonds are not choices. They are sacred duties. You have proven yourself worthy. Why would you refuse such an honor? Jake realized they were speaking different languages, even with the translator. The concepts they were discussing went deeper than words. I don't refuse the honor, Jake said carefully. I refuse being forced. There's a difference. The Queen left without agreeing to release him. Jake lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling, feeling trapped despite the luxury around him. Lyra visited again the next day. She climbed up onto the chair beside his bed and sat quietly for a while. You want to leave, she said finally. It wasn't a question. Yes, Jake admitted. I miss my home, but you are my Koreshtal. We are bonded. I know that's what your people believe, Jake said gently. But humans don't form bonds that way. We choose our bonds freely. And bonds formed through choice are stronger than bonds formed through obligation. Lyra tilted her head, thinking, my mother says you are being foolish. That you reject a great honor. Your mother doesn't understand humans very well yet, Jake said. We're a young species. We do things differently. Will you forget me? Lyra asked quietly. If you return to Earth? Jake felt his heart break a little. Never. I promise you that. What we went through together, that was real. That matters. I will always care about you. But you will still leave. If I'm allowed to, yes. Lyra was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that surprised him. I do not want you to stay if it makes you sad. That would not be right. Jake reached out and gently touched her hand. Thank you for understanding. But I will miss you, she said. I'll miss you too, Jake said honestly. That night, Jake lay awake and thought about his situation. He was effectively a prisoner, though a pampered one. The Queen meant well, but she was holding him against his will. Earth's government was trying to negotiate for his release, but the Velari were powerful. This could turn into a serious diplomatic incident. Jake wondered if there was a way to make Queen Ashara understand. Some way to bridge the gap between their cultures and find a solution that worked for everyone. He just had to figure out what that solution was. 2 weeks passed. Jake's injuries healed completely, thanks to the advanced Velari medical technology. He was moved from the medical bay to luxurious quarters on the royal flagship. The rooms were beautiful, filled with alien art, and comfortable furniture adapted for human size. He had access to the best food, entertainment, anything he could want. Everything except freedom. Jake spent his days in a strange routine. He would eat breakfast, usually with Lyra joining him. She still wanted to learn about Earth, so he taught her more about human culture. He showed her human movies and music. He told her stories about his childhood. Then he would exercise in the ship's gym, maintaining his fitness. Sometimes Velari guards would watch him, curious about human training methods. Jake tried to be friendly, but he felt like an animal in a zoo. In the afternoons, he would walk through the ship's gardens with Lyra. She loved the plants they had brought from Velari worlds. Some of the flowers were bioluminescent, glowing in shades of blue and purple. It was beautiful, but it wasn't home. Every few days, Claire would visit with updates. Earth's government had formally requested Jake's release. The Velari had formally denied the request, stating that Jake was under their protection and had accepted a position in the royal household. But I didn't accept anything, Jake protested. I know, Claire said tiredly. I've explained that. But Queen Ashara believes that by not explicitly refusing, you've accepted. She sees silence as agreement. That's not how it works for humans, Jake said. I know. But we're dealing with a fundamental cultural difference here. The Velari don't understand the concept of individual freedom the way we do. For them, duty to family and community is everything. The situation was getting worse. Some human politicians were calling the Velari actions a kidnapping. The Velari were offended, saying they were honoring Jake, not imprisoning him. Diplomatic relations were becoming strained. Jake felt guilty. None of this was what he wanted. He had just been trying to do his job and protect a child. Now he was at the center of an interstellar incident. Queen Ashara visited him one evening. She brought a gift, an ornate ceremonial armor piece designed for humans. It was beautiful, covered in intricate designs. This is for you, she said. It marks you as Lyra's guardian officially. Wear it with pride. Jake looked at the armor but didn't take it. Your Majesty, with respect, I cannot accept this. The Queen's antennae twitched with what Jake had learned was confusion. Why not? It is a great honor. Because accepting it would be a lie, Jake said. It would mean I agree to stay here forever. And I don't. You are still refusing? The Queen's voice held frustration now. What is on Earth that is worth more than what we offer? My brother, Jake said. Ben raised me after our parents died. He gave up his own dreams to take care of me. He's getting married next year. And I want to be there. I want to meet his bride, Lisa. I want to be part of his life. You can bring him here, Queen Ashara said. We will welcome your family. He doesn't want to live in space. He's a farmer. He loves Earth, the soil, growing things. This isn't his world. Then he is foolish as well. Jake felt anger rising in him for the first time. No. He's not foolish. He's just different from you. And that's okay. Different species. Different values. But you can't force me to give up my values and adopt yours. Queen Ashara was quiet for a long moment. Among my people, what you did for Lyra would be rewarded with a lifetime of honor and comfort. You would be celebrated. Why do you reject this? Because comfort without choice is just a comfortable prison, Jake said. I need you to understand something, Your Majesty. Humans value freedom above almost everything else. We fought wars for it. We died for it. You can give me all the wealth and status in the galaxy. But if I can't choose my own path, I'll never be truly happy. Happiness is overrated, the Queen said. Duty is what matters. Maybe to you, but not to me. The Queen left, and Jake could tell she was upset. He felt bad about that, but he also felt he had been right to speak honestly. Lyra came to see him later that night. She looked troubled. Mother is very angry, she said. She does not understand you. I know, Jake said. I don't think she ever will. She wants what is best for me, Lyra said. She thinks you are the best guardian I could have. She fears that if you leave, I will be in danger again. Jake hadn't considered that angle. There are other guards, Princess. Good ones. But they are not you. You made me feel safe when I was most afraid. You told me stories and held my hand when I cried. You fought for me when others would have run. Lyra's voice was small. I do not want you to go. Jake felt his heart sink. This was harder than arguing with the Queen. I know. And I don't want to hurt you. But Lyra, if I stay here against my will, eventually I'll grow to resent it. I'll be unhappy, and you'll see that unhappiness every day. Is that what you want? A guardian who is sad and trapped? Lyra was quiet for a long time. No, she finally said. I want you to be happy. Even if it means you are far away. Thank you, Jake said softly. That means more to me than you know. The next few days were tense. Jake could feel the change in the ship's atmosphere. The Vaylari crew members who had been friendly now avoided him. The guards watched him more closely. Queen Ashara didn't visit at all. Claire came with bad news. Earth is threatening trade sanctions if the Vaylari don't release you. The Vaylari are saying that Earth is being disrespectful and interfering in their cultural practices. This is escalating fast. I never wanted this, Jake said. I just want to go home. I know. But you've become a symbol now. For humans, you're a citizen being held against his will. For the Vaylari, you're an honored guardian who is rejecting a sacred duty. Both sides are dug in. Jake felt helpless. He paced his quarters like a caged animal. He tried to think of solutions, but nothing seemed to work. Any compromise he thought of would either leave him trapped or insult the Vaylari culture. One morning, he woke up with an idea. It was risky, and he wasn't sure it would work. But it was better than doing nothing. He requested a formal audience with Queen Ashara and Princess Lyra together. It took 3 days for the request to be approved. But finally, he was brought to the Queen's private chambers. The room was impressive, with high ceilings and walls covered in glowing crystals. Queen Ashara sat on a raised platform, with Lyra beside her. They both watched Jake as he entered. You requested this audience, the Queen said. Speak. Jake took a deep breath. This was his one chance to make them understand. He had to get this right. Your Majesty, Princess Lyra, I want to tell you a story. It's about my brother Ben and me. The Queen tilted her head. A story? Yes. Please, just listen. And Jake began to talk. He told them about how his parents had died in a shuttle accident when he was 10. How Ben, who was only 18 at the time, had become his guardian. How Ben had given up his plans to go to university so he could work and take care of Jake. He told them about the hard years, when they struggled to keep their small apartment and have enough food. About how Ben worked 2 jobs and still made time to help Jake with homework. About how Ben taught him to be strong, to be responsible, to care for others. Ben could have given me to relatives, Jake said. It would have been easier for him. He could have lived his own life. But he didn't. He chose to raise me. He chose to sacrifice his own dreams for mine. Jake looked at both of them. But here's the important part. When I turned 18, Ben sat me down. He told me I was free now, free to make my own choices. He said he had done his duty, and now I could choose my own path. I could stay with him or leave. Whatever I wanted. What did you choose? Lyra asked. I chose to stay for 2 more years while I trained for this job. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because the bond between Ben and me was stronger than duty. It was built on love and choice. Jake took a step closer. Your Majesty, you want me to be Lyra's guardian. But a guardian who stays out of obligation will never be as good as a guardian who stays out of choice. You can force me to remain here, but you can't force me to truly embrace this bond. Only I can choose that. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Lyra spoke up, her voice clear. Mother, I want Jake to choose. I want him to want to be here. Not be forced. Queen Ashara looked at her daughter with surprise. Queen Ashara stared at her daughter for a long moment. The large chamber was completely silent except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. You would ask this of me? The queen finally said. To let him go? Lyra moved down from the platform and walked to where Jake stood. She looked up at him with her large, dark eyes. I have been thinking about what you said. About bonds and choices. I asked the scholars about human culture. She turned to her mother. Humans are different from us. They value freedom in a way we do not. If we force Jake to stay, we are not honoring him. We are imprisoning him. And a prisoner cannot truly be Koreshtal. Queen Ashara's antennae moved in complex patterns. Jake had learned this meant she was thinking deeply. My daughter speaks wisdom beyond her years, the queen said slowly. This attack has changed her. Made her grow faster than I wished. She stood and walked down from her platform. For the first time, she approached Jake directly, standing before him. She was so tall that he had to look up to meet her eyes. Tell me truly, Jake Morrison, do you care for my daughter at all? Or was it all simply duty? Jake met her gaze without fear. I care for her very much, Your Majesty. She's brave and kind and curious. When I protected her, it wasn't just duty. It was because I wanted her to be safe, because she matters to me. Yet you still wish to leave. Yes, because I have people on Earth who matter to me too. My brother, who sacrificed so much for me. Friends I've known all my life. A world I love. I can care about Lyra and still love my home. Those feelings don't cancel each other out. Queen Ashara was quiet for a long time. This is difficult for me to understand. In our culture, the bond of Koreshtal is absolute. It surpasses all other bonds. I know, Jake said gently, and I respect that about your culture. But I'm asking you to respect mine as well. To understand that humans need choice to be truly committed to anything. The queen turned to look at her daughter. Lyra stood tall, trying to be brave, but Jake could see the tears starting to form in her eyes. If I release him, the queen said to Lyra, he may never return. You understand this? Yes, Lyra said, her voice shaking. But if we keep him here against his will, his heart will never truly be here. I would rather have him choose to come back someday than force him to stay and watch him be sad. Queen Ashara looked between her daughter and Jake. Then she did something Jake had never seen a Velari do. She made a gesture that, according to Claire's earlier teachings, was a sign of surrender or acceptance. Very well, the queen said. I will grant you permission to leave. Jake Morrison. You are free to return to Earth. Jake felt relief flood through him. Thank you, Your Majesty. But understand this, the queen continued. You will always be welcome here. The bond of Koreshtal is not broken by distance. If ever my daughter needs you, I hope you will remember what you fought for. I will never forget, Jake promised. The queen nodded. Then we shall arrange transport. You may leave whenever you wish. Averin Stars. Averin started well. Lyra made a small sound, almost like a sob. Jake knelt down so he was at her eye level. "Hey," he said softly. "This isn't goodbye forever. It's just goodbye for now." "How can you know?" Lyra asked. "You will be on Earth. I will be here. We may never see each other again." Jake reached into his pocket and pulled out his personal tablet. He brought up a picture of Earth's moon, full and bright against the darkness of space. "Do you see this?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "This is Earth's moon. When you look out at the stars, you can find Earth. And when you do, you'll know I'm there, looking up at the same stars you see. We're not as far apart as you think." He handed her the tablet. "Keep this. Remember that wherever we are, we're under the same sky. And someday, maybe I'll come visit. Or maybe you'll come visit Earth. The future is full of possibilities." Lyra took the tablet carefully. "You promise you will not forget me?" "I promise," Jake said. "You're unforgettable, princess." 2 days later, Jake stood in the shuttle bay of the Velari flagship, ready to board the transport that would take him back to Earth. He had said his goodbyes to Claire, who had tears in her eyes as she hugged him. "You did something amazing," Claire said. "You made them understand us a little better. That matters more than you know." "Claire," now it was time for the final goodbye. Queen Ashara stood formally, flanked by her guards. Lyra was beside her mother, trying to be brave. "Safe travels, Jake Morrison," the Queen said. "May you find the happiness you seek on your world. Thank you, Your Majesty. For everything. For understanding." "For understanding." The Queen nodded. "You have taught me something about humans, about the strength that comes from choice rather than obligation. This is a lesson I will remember." Jake turned to Lyra. The young princess ran to him and hugged him tightly. He hugged her back, careful not to hurt her. "Be safe," she whispered. "And happy." "You too," Jake said. "Grow up strong and wise. Learn everything you can. And remember, you're braver than you think." Lyra pulled back and looked at him. "Will you really come back someday?" Jake smiled. "I don't know what the future holds. But I know that I'll never forget you. And if you ever need me, truly need me, I'll find a way." With that, Jake boarded the shuttle. As it pulled away from the flagship, he looked out the window and saw Lyra standing there, waving. He waved back until the ship grew too small to see. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Jake spent the time thinking about everything that had happened. He had gone to space expecting a simple assignment, and had found something much more complicated. He had formed a bond with an alien child, fought for her life, and then fought for his freedom. When the shuttle finally landed at the Earth station, the first person Jake saw was his brother Ben. Ben was waiting at the arrival gate, a huge smile on his face. "Jake!" Ben ran forward and grabbed him in a crushing hug. "Man, I thought we'd lost you to space royalty forever." Jake hugged him back, feeling home in a way he hadn't felt in months. "Never. I missed you too much." They went back to Ben's farm, where Lisa was waiting with a welcome home dinner. Jake told them everything, the whole story from start to finish. They listened with amazement. "So you're famous among the Velari now?" Lisa asked. "I guess so," Jake said. "But I'm happy to be back to being nobody special here." "You're special to us," Ben said firmly. "Always have been." The next few months were peaceful. Jake returned to work at the diplomatic corps, but he requested assignments on Earth. He helped train other guards, passing on what he had learned. He attended Ben and Lisa's wedding, standing as best man and giving a speech that made everyone laugh and cry. Life went back to normal, but Jake never forgot. He kept the ceremonial armor piece that Queen Ashara had given him, even though he had refused it at first. She had insisted he take it when he left. He kept it in a box in his room, a reminder of his time in space. Sometimes at night, he would look up at the stars and wonder how Lyra was doing. He hoped she was happy. He hoped she was safe. 6 months after his return to Earth, Jake received a message on his personal communicator. It was from the Velari Empire. His heart raced as he opened it. The message was an invitation. Princess Lyra was about to undergo her naming ceremony, a significant coming-of-age ritual in Velari culture. The ceremony marked her transition from childhood to the next stage of her life. And she had specifically requested that Jake Morrison be present. Jake stared at the invitation for a long time. He could refuse. He had built his life back on Earth. He was comfortable here. Safe. But he remembered a young princess crying in a dark ventilation shaft, trusting him to keep her safe. He remembered her saying she wanted him to be happy, even if it meant being far away. He remembered promising that if she truly needed him, he would be there. Jake booked passage on the next transport to Velari space. When he arrived at the Velari homeworld 2 weeks later, he was greeted with ceremony. Queen Ashara herself came to meet him at the spaceport. "You came," she said, and there was genuine warmth in her voice. "I was invited," Jake said. "And I wanted to come. That's the difference. This time, it's my choice." The Queen made a gesture of approval. "You are wise, Jake Morrison. Come. My daughter has spoken of nothing but your arrival for days." Lyra had grown in the past 6 months. She was taller, and her armor had darkened to a richer green. But when she saw Jake, she ran to him like the child she still partially was. "Jake, you came. I was afraid you would not." "Are you kidding?" Jake said with a grin. "I wouldn't miss this for anything." The naming ceremony was beautiful and complex, full of ancient rituals and traditions. Jake stood beside Queen Ashara throughout, an honored guest. When it was over, Lyra had a new name, one that marked her growth and status. At the celebration afterward, Jake found himself talking with Lyra about everything she had learned in the past months. She told him about her studies, her training, her hopes for the future. "I want to be an ambassador," she said, "like Claire. I want to help different species understand each other. Like you helped Mother understand humans." "That's a wonderful goal," Jake said. Lyra looked at him seriously. "Will you come visit again?" Jake thought about it. He thought about his life on Earth, about Ben and Lisa and the farm. He thought about his work and his friends, but he also thought about this brave young being who had faced her fears and grown stronger. "Yes," he said, "not all the time. My home is still Earth. But when I can, when it's right, I'll come. Because you're important to me. And this time, it's because I choose it. Not because anyone forced it." Lyra's eyes shone. "That makes it better, knowing you choose to be here. That's what I tried to tell your mother," Jake said with a smile. "Bonds are strongest when they're chosen freely." Queen Ashara approached them. "Jake Morrison, you have traveled far to be here. I am grateful. Thank you for inviting me, Your Majesty. I have learned much from you," the Queen said. "About humans, about choice, about the difference between duty and devotion. My daughter was right. A guardian who chooses to protect is worth more than one forced to serve." She paused, then added, "You will always be welcome in our home. Whether you come once a year or once a decade, you are family. Not because I command it, but because you have earned it." Jake felt a warmth in his chest. "Thank you. That means everything." As Jake stood there at the celebration, surrounded by aliens on a world billions of miles from Earth, he felt something unexpected. He felt at peace. He had his life on Earth, his home, his family. But he also had this, a connection to beings who were different from him, but who he cared about deeply. He had learned that home wasn't just one place, that family could span the stars, and that the bonds you choose for yourself are always the strongest. Someday, he would return to Earth, and someday after that, he might return here. Both places were part of him now. Both mattered, and for the first time since the whole adventure began, Jake Morrison understood that he had the best of both worlds. Because he had the freedom to choose.